It's a bright, sunny Saturday morning here in Vancouver, British Columbia, which means that it's time for Why I Want. This is the show where we go over the top prospects in the 2023 NHL entry draft. We talk about what they are, what they could be, and where you could see their names selected at this year's selection. So, today we're talking about a guy that has had a really strange sort of draft year. He's a guy who, at the beginning of the season, many people thought he probably would have been a top pick, but as the year has gone on, he has slowly slipped down the board, although it's not really to a super extreme extent like we had seen with Brayden Yager, for example, of the Moose Jaw Warriors. Instead, this is a guy who is still kind of hovering in that top 10-ish territory, and you have a lot of people, especially in Montreal, even asking if he's the right pickup for them at 5th overall. Today, we are talking about Slovak center Dalibor Dvorsky. And I know for all of y'all who are Canadiens fans, you're like, oh, that's why we're talking about this guy. He's a Slovak, just like Slafkovsky and Meshard. Of course, the Habs are going to talk about this. But either way, there's more than meets the eye here, and there's more to talk about with Dvorsky than just the fact that he is from Slovakia. Dalibor Dvorsky is a June 15, 2005 born center right-wing player, 6'1", 201 pounds as a left-handed guy, and his consolidated ranking out of all the scouting outlets combined is 9th overall. This varies tremendously. You have some outlets like Recruit, for example, that have him at number 8. You have TSN and Bob McKenzie who have him at number 9. Button has him at number 9. McKean's at 10. He is the 3rd-ranked European skater by NHL Central Scouting. But Elite Prospects themselves, they have him at number 17. So does Dauber. Smot Scouting has him at number 18. So the rankings vary quite heavily depending on who you ask. But based off of everything that we're seeing NHL scouts and the guys at the top of the media chain like McKenzie and Button are saying, it's very apparent that Dalibor Dvorsky could be somewhere in that top 10 by the time draft day comes and goes, and here's why. This season, playing for the AIK Junior 20 team in the Swedish Junior League, the guy was at 2 points a game, 10 games played, 10 goals, 11 assists, 21 total points. He also suited up for Team AIK in the regular Allsvenskan, where in 38 games played, he had 14 points. Now, that's not an amazing number, but he's only 17, 18 years old, playing in the 2nd Pro League in Sweden, so that's a pretty good feat already, especially playing off against men. So the numbers, while they're not too extravagant, it's a good metric to go out there and say, hey, this guy's a legit player, he plays the game the right way, he was given an opportunity, and he stuck around. Dvorsky also played for Team Slovakia at the World Under-18s, where he was a monster, 13 points in 7 games played as an alternate captain for the Slovaks. He was the 6th most productive player in the entire tournament, behind those USA guys, Otto, Stenberg, and Macklin Celebrini, who's going to be drafted next year. He also suited up for Team Slovakia at the World Juniors. He had 3 points in 5 games over there. But when it comes to the way that Dvorsky is able to get these points and what makes him such an effective player, he's a guy that just plays a really solid two-way game, and it's really difficult to find any quote-unquote problems with the way that he decides to play. Sure, there are inefficiencies. You could say that his skating, his explosivity might need a little bit of work. He is not the fastest guy out there. He is not the most eager and, as we had said, explosive player out there. But when it comes to just the way Dvorsky perceives the game, how his defensive instincts are fine-tuned, and what he's able to do in the offensive zone, he's a very competent and capable hockey player. In the offensive zone, he's got a really good one-timer and regular shot. He parks himself on the right side as a left-handed shot, kind of like how Leon Draisaitl and Nikita Kucherov do. He just kind of stands there. When he gets the puck, he'll fire it on goal. It'll go in more often than not. And when he has time to load up and shoot, he's got a very nice wrister from distance as well. Dvorsky has a very good shot, and in his own zone, he reads the play very well, and he's able to break things up nicely. In fact, if we go over to TSN's Craig Button list, this is what he had to say about Dvorsky from May 15th, so just a few days ago after the draft lottery. Dvorsky had a pretty big rise from number 19 to number 9 on Button's list. He didn't put up big numbers playing in Sweden's Allsvenskan with AIK, finishing the season with 6 goals and 14 points in 38 games, but the Sloven Slovakia native was far more productive playing against his peers. It talks about his numbers that we had just talked about, and it also talks about how his game took a huge notch up at the under-18s. While Button initially compared Dvorsky to Calgary Flames center Mikael Backlund, he has since found a new comparable. "He is such a good two-way player," said Button of Dvorsky. "Mikhail Backlund has always been that really good defensive center that chips in the 45 points, but I think that Dvorsky might be along the lines more so of Bo Horvat. More offense there." And this is sort of the problem that a lot of people had with Dvorsky, because if you take a look at the previous TSN Craigslist article that was published, it was written here that Dvorsky's comparable was Mikhail Backlund. And Mikhail Backlund, while he's not a bad hockey player, I don't think anybody's going to go out there and say, hey, that's a top 5 guy. Like, that's a top 10 caliber prospect that you're going to take in the NHL draft. You're drafting this guy at number 10 because you want him to be Backlund. And unfortunately, Mikhail Backlund is not a name that moves the needle all too much. However, Bo Horvat, on the other hand, is. Horvat was a 60-goal caliber guy before getting traded over to the Islanders. I know he but really fell off after the trade, but he still was a profile that was, at one point in the season, on pace for over a point per game, 90 points, I believe, 60 goals. He had a really good amount of potential, and for Dvorsky, he's a player who, if you really try to see Bo Horvat in his game, you'll find the similarities there. The shot, the two-way capabilities, the defensively minded sort of way he traverses around his own zone. But there are some things that we could go out there and knock on his game as well. As we said, they're not bad parts, they're just things he could work on. Tony Ferrari of the Hockey News said this back in December: "The reason for Dvorsky's low ranking relative to the public consensus is that he's far too willing to let the play come to him and set up for a shot or stationary playmaking opportunity, such as the power play. He has a ton of talent, but he wants to ride shotgun when he should be the driver of the bus." Sam Constantino said there's a power element to his game that should allow him to produce more consistently, and that may happen at the World Juniors. You also had yourself Smart Scouting saying this back in November: "His stock has fallen this season. Dvorsky is being deployed as a center, but he isn't a big factor when it comes to north-south puck movement. He isn't overly involved in transition." However, Corey Pronman has a holistic approach. He says this back in November: "Dvorsky is a player with a ton of offensive ability and is deadly within the offensive zone due to a great combination of skill, vision, and a shot that is a legit threat from range. Dvorsky can pick apart defenses, and a power play can run through him." So at the end of the day, this is a player who, as a two-way caliber guy with a very good shot and not the best skating out there, he's a player that might go as high as number 6, number 7 overall. Of course, if you want to talk about Montreal getting this guy, then that's a conversation that Canadiens fans are always bringing up. But this could be a guy that slips maybe to the 10 or 11 range, depending on if other teams see more value and long-term potential in other prospects instead. Dvorsky's potential is really going to depend on if you see more of that Mikael Backlund guy or that Bo Horvat guy. They're both good players, but one of them is a lot more valuable and thus a lot more justifiable to being drafted somewhere in the top 8 than the other. No disrespect to Mikhail Backlund, he makes his money in the NHL, he's a good player, but Bo Horvat for a while became a point-per-game guy and was a 60-goal caliber guy. That just really didn't last throughout the entire season. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say that Dvorsky has 60-goal potential or whatever, but if he finishes off his career with a career season of, let's say, 25 goals, 35 assists for 60 points some odd, I don't think that's all too unrealistic. And combined with all the other aspects that Dvorsky brings, the two-way stability, the calmness, the way he's able to perceive the game and just allow things to come to him, where he doesn't really force himself to do things, but he just does the right things. Dalibor Dvorsky is a very solid two-way player, but where he goes in the draft, that remains to be seen. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Dvorsky and the way he plays the game. What are your thoughts about how he projects into the next few years? If you're Montreal, do you take this guy at number 5? If you're Vancouver, do you wait and want to see this guy's name at 11? If you're a fan of any other team, what are your opinions about Dvorsky and the way he plays the game? What are your thoughts on where he should be drafted? What are your thoughts on how good everything is going to turn out for him once he does eventually make the NHL? Should that be the case, of course, some might think, oh, he's going to be an AHL for lifer, but I don't think anybody is too pessimistic about prospects when they're 17 or 18 years old, right? But either way, thoughts in the comment section below about Dalibor Dvorsky. I hope you enjoyed this Vrishaj 9, and bye.